Maggie, great to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you too.
Good. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. So yeah, quickly to introduce myself, my name is Casey Sarin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at Spaceback. I've been in programmatic space and ad technology space most of my career, and started Spaceback really just seeing brands are doing a lot of great content in social media, and a lot of times their banner ads and display ads are just kind of an afterthought compared to the quality of content going into social. So our company helps brands recreate social experiences in paid media environments, and they're a lot. There's a lot of cost efficiency in creating them. It's a lot cheaper and easier to create them, and they perform a lot better and really effective at combating banner blindness. But yeah, when Maggie and I first connected, we talked a lot about how we both see kind of silos of organizations changing, and this social and paid media are not always being so separate. But we'll get more into that later. For starters, Maggie, maybe you can start out by introducing yourself and your role at MMI.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So I'm Maggie. I'm the CEO of what I call the Dream Team over at MMI Agency. So we are a 36-year-old agency this year. I joined 12 years ago as an account executive. Prior to joining MMI, though, I was in the military. I was a wedding planner. I worked in technology startup world. And one of the things that was really appealing to me about MMI was, Casey, just something that you were just mentioning, is, our agency was founded as an integrated agency. Our agency has always been tenaciously focused on consumers and path to purchase connections and how do you make a holistic journey. So I was hired to start our social practice. 12 years later, I was promoted to CEO 3 years ago. And it's been an amazing ride. I think getting promoted right before COVID, I think probably we could all write a book on the last 2 years, but leading people and brands through what has been a difficult time has honestly been the honor of my lifetime, making sure our team's okay and everybody's good, but just getting to do some really cool stuff in the midst of all of that. It's just been really special. So that's what I do today. MMI, we talk a lot about how we are the connection between performance and possibility. So we're really focused on, what does our consumer look like, and not just what does a persona on a piece of paper look like, but what is she stressed out about right now? What is she thinking? What is she feeling? Not just what she puts in social, but what is she typing in Google when she's up at late and she can't sleep, right? And then we think about what creative speaks to her, what influencers would actually help make her life better. And that's how we create really connected programs between comms, media, and creative for our clients.
Yeah, so 12 years ago when you first started, and with your focus being on social, I assume back then like social wasn't even something a lot of agencies did. So it's crazy that your focus started there, and you're now CEO of the agency. Does that reflect kind of shift of importance of social within the group, from being like kind of what did social look like when you started, and what does social look like now at MMI?
Gosh, when I first started, we were managing people's Facebook pages. It was when it all kind of first started. Facebook launched pages.
That was before Facebook even sold ads, right?
Yeah, so it was before Facebook sold ads, and then we always joke about we were doing paid search and social together before it was cool, because we were trying to work with our brands to figure out, gosh, the first campaign I ever worked on, this is actually perfect for this topic, and I don't know why I didn't tell you about it prior, but we worked with a major mall in Houston. It was a long-time client, and we were trying to figure out how to drive more people into retail. And so we hosted a lot of events in the mall, and we would promote them aggressively via search and social. It was something that had never really been done at the time. But one of our first events, it was a Halloween pet costume contest. And we went from having like just a few people signed up to running paid social ads to then having 100 pets signed up to walk their, in-person retail runway. So from there, we were able to show different clients how digital could work for them. And I think, to your point, social's changed a lot, digital's changed a lot. And for me, I think what really helped in my career has always been staying curious for what's new and what's different, and not being afraid of those changes. You know, we all were around during this crazy 2 years when you saw a bunch of brands turning off their Facebook ads. If you are a Facebook only solution to brands, that was probably a really difficult time. But if you are, just like you said, not thinking about silos, you're able to react, you can serve up different solutions so that if something like that ever happens again, you know, your brands still see you as true partners in their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. And for the brands that you're working with now, is social a component of all of your partnerships, or?
Social is a very big component of all of our partnerships. So we, where we really specialize is performance media, influencer, and then performance creative. So social plays a huge role, and we test social out in a lot of different ways. So we test branded content on social, we test influencer content on social. But what we really try to do with our brands, and what I think brands appreciate about MMI, is while social is great, social is not the only place that brands need to be. It needs to be balanced out with things like programmatic, things like search. You know, if you've got a healthy social campaign going, but you don't have any search, your competitors are going to cannibalize your brand in search, because when people go to the search box and they're seeing all these amazing social ads and they look for more information, your competitor is going to have bought out your terms. So, you know, while social is a piece, and it's an important piece for us, it's definitely not the end all be all of how we drive people to purchase or foot traffic or any of those things.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the things that's most exciting about social is just how quickly it's changing and how there's all kinds of new opportunities. And, you know, I think I see that it's kind of scary for marketers. I mean, you know, even just seeing TikTok come from, you know, I think beginning of pandemic, I don't know if I even had heard of TikTok, and now it's like a part of all these kind of conversations and how they're changing, you know, the future of influencers and all of that. So, but tell me a little bit more about just how, like, some of the new trends in social that you're excited about, and yeah, how marketers should be thinking about, you know, testing new waters in social.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things, and this is, I guess, shocking to me in the year of our Lord 2022, but brands, when you think about social, it's really important that the asset you are driving people to, your website, whether you're trying to get people in store to retail or you're driving a sale online, your website has to be mobile friendly. And so this is not a trend. This is like the anti-trend. We still see so many brands, like major big brands, that have websites that are not at all digitally friendly. So even if you're going into this amazing, you know, trend seeking, future forward direction, but your foundation isn't in order, that's kind of where things can break. One of the things I'm really excited about, though, in the future of selling is the future of social selling, and how you can connect influencer live selling to driving, you know, traffic to sales and websites and all of that. The interesting thing about social selling, and I'm not talking about ads in your Instagram feed, I'm talking about an influencer kind of doing like a HGTV live demo. So you, in APAC, in Asia, social selling has really taken off. Consumers understand that when an influencer goes live, they click on it, they watch it, they interact with it, they purchase. What we're seeing in the US is that we're a little bit behind Asia in terms of consumer adoption to these channels. So what we've been doing at MMI is we've been encouraging our brands to test the waters. So try out social selling, try out a live stream with an influencer. One of the things we've seen from our tests is that social, that live selling, it doesn't work for every single brand. Just like so many other things we talk about in marketing, it's not a one size fits all solution. So things that need an educational element and take a little bit longer to explain and can take users on a journey, for example, those are the things that fit really well in the social selling landscape. One of the things we're working with a client on is it's a nutrition brand. And so do we host live streamed workouts with influencers where during key moments in the workout, they're also talking about what supplements they're taking. They're delivering a unique promo code to encourage people to purchase in real time. But again, I think that's something that is going to really, really take off in the later part of this year and beyond, as you see the trends related to consumers still are really hungering for authentic experiences and connecting with real humans. Influencers and social selling can really provide that if done right in an authentic way.
Yep. Yeah, and that takes authenticity to an entirely new level when influencers can say whatever they want, live. And I think brands have even less control if they're not just approving, a post in advance, but they're kind of letting them talk to their audiences in real time. Do you think there's any is it brands just kind of gotta dive in, and that's always going to be kind of a concern, and the trade-off is more authenticity? Or how do you think about, what would you tell consumers, or sorry, marketers who are worried about those risks?
I think it's really important when you're delving in the influencer space. It's very similar to PR in that you have to give a reporter a really compelling framework to tell a story, but they're going to do it in their own voice. So it's important to make sure you're researching the right influencers that are brand safe, who have demonstrated they're not going to say something crazy on the internet. But then also empowering those influencers with a really strong brief that they can use with what's unique about a product and what differentiators are there and why is it better than another product. That helps them tell their story in their own voice. So while it's scary, we are very much advocates of let the influencer tell the story, just like you would let a journalist tell the story for you. They know their audience better than you do. They live, sleep, and breathe their audience and their audience's desires. So giving them that freedom and a framework is hugely important. One of the other phenomena, though, with this is the rise of virtual influencers. Lil Miquela, she has so many followers on Instagram. She's a digital influencer. I think, Casey, you and I were laughing about this before. I don't know that my mom would realize she's not a real person. But these digital influencers are starting to get bigger and bigger, and they have a very unique voice. They have a unique story. So it's not like they're just brand machines, right? But if a brand is especially paranoid and wants to partner, there's this whole world of virtual influencers now that you can work with. I mean, the woman I was mentioning, the bot, Lil Miquela that I was mentioning, I mean, I think it was Time Magazine's one of the top 25 most influential people. And this is a person on the internet, like a not real person. So it's just fascinating. And she's been around since 2016. So like she's got this weird coming of age story too, where I think it was 2020, she realized she was a bot. Anyway, but it's a fascinating place that it's on the rise. And I feel like one of the other trends you and I were talking about too is like this idea of the metaverse and gaming. And,
real quick, Maggie, before we get into that, I just want to so the whole digital influencer, basically it's a bot, or it's not an actual person behind it. Do you think that these are going to be more prominent in also kind of the live selling too, or is there a possibility for?
I do. I definitely do, because I think that there's that element of control. You can script it, right? And when we talk about Lil Miquela being a bot, if you follow her, there's an ad agency that works behind her machine. Like it is a whole complex ecosystem. So depending on the brand, like she's done launches for Gucci, she's walked digital runways at New York Fashion Week, things like that. Like this is not just a like little avatar character. This is a fully realized kind of person. But yeah, I definitely think that is going to be an area that brands should experiment more. And there are so many more influencers like that, virtual influencers popping up that have these really strong ecosystems behind them.
Yep. And I definitely want to get into the metaverse stuff. One other question on this, because this is all super fascinating to me and not stuff I get to talk about every day. So if brands are looking into this kind of live selling concept, Are there influencers that are specific to live selling, or would you recommend like influencers that brands are already working on? This is like a kind of a new concept. They could work with those influencers, or do you think there's kind of a separate skill set almost where brands should seek out separate influencers, or even explore like digital influencers rather than kind of their existing network?
I think one of the most important things, especially when we think about retail brands and their connection with influencers, and this is something that I was doing influencers kind of similar to social before it was like necessarily called influencer and it was this like buzzwordy thing. So for us, we've always tried to be really influencer agnostic. Like, forget your roster of perfect influencers. Who are you trying to talk to? And from there, that's where you decide what channels you're going to be on, what influencers you should hire. I mean, Casey, for retail, there's a whole world of just coupon influencers, and we have deployed them. If there's a special going in a certain region for the United States, for example, you can hire influencers from Arizona who follow all the deals in Arizona, and they're going to post about all of those deals and collect it all. So like that's one way to go, especially again, thinking about the connection of influencers to retail. For live selling, I do think there are influencers that are really, really good at it. And there are other influencers who, are learning and dabbling in it. Again, I think in Asia, many influencers are very well equipped doing it. Here, I think we're still testing and learning, but just like any influencer campaign, I would say if we're going to create a live selling experience, we need to find influencers who are really good at it. And typically all of the pilots that we're running right now, they're on YouTube. YouTube is the best place to launch those kinds of things right now. I know TikTok is working on it. Instagram is as well. But the other thing that we like about the YouTube element is, so you create this live selling experience. It goes live on a YouTube channel, and it lives there and it stays there. So you can optimize that video for search. You can put keywords in the description. So then you're also not one and done. You've got this asset that lives out there that you can use in a variety of different ways. But that's a great question. I don't think I truly believe influencer, especially in this space, you've got to find the right person who's really good. And even then, working on it in co-creation with them. How do you do this together? Because they might have really awesome ideas to take to your brand as well.
Yep. And for kind of new things like this, where, I think, obviously there's a lot of potential, but really this is getting in on the ground floor and accelerating learnings in an area that I think is just, it's harder to calculate ROI than like running a display ad or something. How should brands be thinking about success early on? Should it be competitive with their Facebook CPAs, or what should they see to know that it's working?
Thank you for asking that. I feel like that is, I think I was saying this to you earlier, the struggle with it, and I'm not going to say this the exact perfect way, so everyone forgive me, but the struggle in all of this, in every channel kind of mixing, is exactly what you just said. Is brands will take an influencer campaign or something like this, and they want to compare it apples to apples to a Facebook buy, or really to any media buy. What we have been trying to re-educate brands on, kind of flipping this on the head a little bit, is what would you pay to have a 45-minute spot on HGTV or something like that? And that's more of how we've been trying to equate the ROI, because it's never going to be exactly the same as a Facebook ad buy ever. Like, it's just not. And if a brand ever says like, I have $1 to spend, I'm always going to say, well, you should use that whole dollar on your website first before you use it anywhere else.
Well,
yeah, but like
especially if it's not mobile optimized, right?
Yes, totally. But on the influencer space, and it's such a, I'm not answering it as eloquently as I would usually like, but it's such a difficult conversation, because I feel so strongly that things like brand awareness, PR, influencer, every brand knows it's important. We've never been able to perfectly measure it. And so now, what I've seen brands make the mistake of is, say that you spend $10,000 on a campaign, you drive $100,000 in sales. That doesn't seem like a lot in that moment in time. But then if you put media behind that asset, and then over the next week, you drive $500,000 in sales, you have to think about that as like more of a blended ROI. And it's just such a new thing. And exactly like we were talking on the upfront, because everything's still so siloed, you still have this issue of the influencer agencies are saying influencer is the solution. The media agencies saying, well, no, you should spend your money in media because cost per click is better. Where I believe it's really a balance between thinking about awareness and then thinking about conversion.
Yep. And you make a really good point too, that brands are spending so much money on content creation, that this isn't just a media activation. It's a new content asset that can live its own life even after the live selling or something.
Totally.
Yeah, cool. I would love to check in a few months and see what you're learning about this, because it's a trend that hasn't been on my radar much before. I think TikTok is the first time I've started getting exposed to more live streams where they're just kind of naturally in the feed. And I think Instagram and Facebook are doing some more stuff like that too.
I think that your example with TikTok is so great again, because if we think about like it's been adopted much faster other places, but then now here it's taken off. And I think there was a recent study that said TikTok had more traffic than Google. So that's where I think that this trend of social selling, social influencer, how it looks is going to accelerate. I just am not exactly sure when.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with you, and couldn't agree with you more about looking at. I mean, I think Facebook has done a great job getting the industry hooked on kind of their CPA metrics, and that being kind of what they should think of as their baseline for performance for all other media activations. And I think that's just completely not the right approach for brands, both from a scale perspective, like that gets more expensive as brands are growing and need to reach larger and larger audiences, but also just in terms of like that, how much would you pay for that HGTV asset, where we're like thinking of these things as content creation and brand presence and PR, not just a media activation with an ROI calculation. All right, sorry, let's get into Metaverse. Now, what is the Metaverse, Maggie?
I mean, depending on who you ask, the Metaverse has very different definitions. For me, the way I think about the Metaverse is it's a digital realization of my physical life. It can take place in a lot of different environments. I think that things like Animal Crossing are part of the Metaverse. You have an avatar who's building things, creating things. And then you have, the Metaverse is huge in a lot of other gaming communities as well. So that's how I define the Metaverse for now. Eventually, it's going to be crazy, but I think brands who are seeing it as a content platform and testing the waters now, but also seeing it as, again, that authentic extension of what they're doing in the rest of their marketing world, will be the brands that are most successful. I think that, you and I talked about this a little bit, but kids, they spend a lot of time in the Metaverse already, in places like Fortnite. They're talking to other teenagers, they're playing games with each other. You see brands sponsoring outfits and all of these other things in game. I think that's going to continue to grow. One of the things I've been most excited by in the Metaverse that I've seen, recently, is Nike has their new campaign launching. Everybody is an athletic body, and you would think, oh gosh, Nike, if they're doing stuff in the Metaverse, isn't that encouraging people to just like sit behind their
couch and do nothing?
Totally. But what Nike's doing is really cool, and I think that this also goes to brands' global responsibility to not break the Metaverse, which is another existential conversation we can have much later. But I think that Nike is taking their responsibility serious to not just encourage people to sit on their couch all day. So in Nike world, when you do real world activities, whether it's running or playing basketball or walking or playing with your dog or whatever, you get in-game points. to purchase your Jordans or whatever it is that you're going to purchase in your digital life. So that's a really good example of a brand that I feel like is taking that definition of what is my in-person life look like and extending it into the digital world. I think there's going to be so many opportunities for self-expression in different ways than they've been before. So many different opportunities for education. But yeah, the metaverse to me it's just taking off, and it's another place to connect with consumers, to create connected content, and make sure that it, matches up with your whole kind of goal brand story. I think, brands that are doing the metaverse just to be cool and do the metaverse, just like we're talking about live selling, they're probably going to spend a lot of money on something. They're not going to see a fast enough ROI, and then they're going to stop.
Yep. And what's crazy is like, this didn't really click for me before talking to you about it, but that, kids playing Fortnite was your example, where they're already in the metaverse, they're already buying virtual goods and building their virtual identity and interacting with other people's virtual character. So, in theory, they're going to be a lot more comfortable for it. How do you see e-commerce, and I guess some of the things we were talking about earlier with live selling, how do you see that stuff coming or matching up with the metaverse?
I think that is all kind of a world left to be explored. It's not something that I'm not on Fortnite buying and doing stuff. So I don't know my level of comfort necessarily buying a real good on the metaverse, like how that all works. My kind of inspiration for learning a lot of this has been a woman named Shannon Pruitt. She's the chief content officer for Stagwell, and she has kids. And so she was the one who kind of opened my mind to how fast it is coming, and also though, like how much it's already here. Yeah. So that is something I think would be really interesting to explore. The brand I was telling you about earlier that I think has done an interesting job of bringing together retail and gaming was KFC. So Kentucky Fried Chicken took the digital into in person, and then you're kind of adding experiential into this as well, right? But they turned 5,000 of their restaurants in Asia to in-game battlegrounds where users could collect different things. They could use it in this online game they came up with. But it was cool because, again, they're thinking of the whole ecosystem. How do we get people into our store to buy a meal, buy food, and then interact and fall in love with the brand? It wasn't just a metaverse thing just to do something cool in the metaverse. They brought it into real life. And that kind of leaves, open for the last trend is, I think, things like people still want experiences. We've been cooped up for a really long time. So how do you connect the dots between this digital influencer and the metaverse and then in-person experiential events? It sounds crazy, right? But like that's not that far away from where we are now.
Yep. No, I get overwhelmed just hearing you talk about how fast this is coming and how much it's like, when the metaverse as a buzzword first started popping up, it sounded like something, 10 years in the future, but just that it's already happening. And it seems like as marketers, we need to start learning how we can, use these channels to help our brands have the best possible presence. What are some of the brands that you're seeing that are, you mentioned KFC, and Nike, what are some of the other brands that we can look to as having really strong social presences and you see as kind of intelligent ways of testing these new channels?
One of the brands that has frankly gotten me the most excited just in the last several months, and this is not necessarily because of what they're doing in metaverse or influencer live selling, but I really loved what Patagonia has done in terms of taking all of the money that they made from Black Friday, donating it back to the environment. Something we haven't really talked about today is this: brands have a responsibility to do good in the world, whether or not they want to admit it. And I feel like, our generation and younger generations feel very, very strongly about that. And from a retail perspective, I know that I'm doing research on where are things made, Is it sustainable? What happens when you return things? Like, I've never done that before. So the brands that I'm most excited about too are ones like that, that are exploring how to give back. J. Crew now has a program where if you send your jeans back in, they recycle. That makes me want to buy J. Crew more. And I think they're all doing a really good job, those brands like that, of connecting that into their paid social efforts. They're partnering with influencers like Patagonia, the brand. There is an influencer named Patagonia, and she is a drag queen, and she is amazing. She goes on hikes in her fabulous clothes, and her whole mission is to make the outdoors more accessible to everybody. So RAI and Patagonia have partnered with her because they believe that that's an important part of their mission too. And so those brands that incorporate their mission into what they're doing, I believe also are going to drive a ton of retail sales in the future as well.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And I also have so much respect for brands like Patagonia, where it seems like, or I was in a coffee shop the other day and I saw a $4 bottle of water, and it was like, buy this bottle of water and we'll donate 50 cents to some cause. And it felt more like a commission to Mother Nature than like their identity. It was like, you buy this overpriced water and we'll donate something, versus this kind of purpose approach where it's more about the brand's identity and they're supporting this, either way. And then it's kind of your purchase is an invitation to support that also, more than it kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I saw it more as kind of a commission.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, brands are definitely doing that more or better, and it does seem like younger shoppers care a lot more about that. I think you were telling me some stats before about how much millennials prefer brands that they like identify with the purpose.
Yeah, and I think millennials were the first ones kind of like paving the way, but I definitely think that Gen Z, it's even more important to them. I mean, now I can't remember the exact stat I shared with you, but I'm sure we can post it on LinkedIn and everybody can find it later. But it's definitely growing. And I see a lot of the brands that we work with in the CPG space, especially, they are getting a lot of questions around sustainability and plastic and what are you doing in your factories and all of those things. The other thing with that trend too is, Lush Cosmetics is another interesting example brand to watch. I mean, they are not doing any social at all anymore, any social selling, because they've decided that it is, their purpose is empowering people and comfort in their bodies and relaxation. Instagram and the chase for likes is the exact opposite of that. So that's a brand I'm very interested in watching right now, because I wonder, with millennials and Gen Z being so tapped into their phone, how do they continue to reach brands like that? So that's the next frontier a little bit of, okay, so the next trend is going to be, how do we get in front of brands who aren't going to do social anymore?
Yep. And I think that, like we were talking about earlier, of that, Facebook kind of CPA metric that is kind of, I think, the curse of every other channel, is kind of having that hanging over their head. Brands like Lush, I think it's almost, they're free from that, or they have the opportunity to, I think, look at new channels in more holistic ways versus just the bottom line. And at the same time, it is going to be challenging, because we do know that Facebook is a very scalable channel that, I mean, there's a reason, all D2C brands kind of grow up there and, start out on Facebook, is it can really work.
Oh, it's like the best launching ground. But then I think there's so many challenges around the fact that they're a walled garden and viewability. And again, as a retail, whether you've got a brick and mortar or a website, the fact that Facebook isn't very transparent about their data that they're going to give you, I feel like a lot of the startup brands that we have worked with have really struggled with that. So like, exactly your point is, what is my true north in measurement? Like, I'm hearing in store, this is what's going on sales. Here's what Google's telling me, but then Facebook is claiming all the credit. So how do you think about all of those things together, so it's all balanced and you're not just chasing one metric?
Yep. It's amazing that we've gotten almost through this conversation without, I don't think I've said the word pandemic or COVID or anything. which is awesome. But one of the things I respect a lot about your leadership is just how your team has managed to use this time and you take advantage of being able to build relationships in different ways. Can you just share a few leadership insights throughout the pandemic, challenges and ways that your team has been able to overcome them?
I think my biggest thing, probably as a woman, that advice I would give to everyone is don't have imposter syndrome. You were invited to the conversation and your voice matters because you have amazing things to say. And I don't care if you are an account coordinator or an AE or a CEO, speak up for what you care about and what you're passionate and curious about. That's the best way to grow. I think for us, we have had to embrace very different ways of working. We've had to figure out how to be an integrated collaborative agency from California to New York City and beyond. How do we do that? I think we're a very people first organization. That's the most important thing. So making sure that we're flexible for parents who are dealing with the craziness of the last 2 years, just everything going on, right? So I think just the advice that I would give is speak up for what you need in your day-to-day. That's what we talk to the team about a lot, is like, don't be stressed out alone in your house. If you need help, if you have a question, there are 130 of us that can help answer those questions. But also, I think it requires work to build culture in a hybrid environment. So we do now we do town halls where anyone who wants to come can come ask me questions. I run a session in our onboardings now. So every new employee gets to meet me. I talk to them about our principal stack, which is people, process, and profit. How do those things work together for the benefit of our people? But just being super transparent, I think, has helped us a lot. Like, when is business awesome? When are we having a ton of opportunities? Then, okay, now phase 2 of the pandemic has started. How do we continue to take care of each other and be there for our brands and all of that? So I just think communication is key. Being generous with each other is important. But also just like staying curious and being excited about this weird profession we have all chosen to be in is just really important.